All right, guys, I thought I'd discuss this Mason Greenwood thing because he's now officially been dropped from the club. He'll never play again. And there's two sides to this, and I think they're both equally as important. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit confused about the decision based off the statements that we've got. Okay, so we've all heard that clip of the audio, right? And everybody came to the conclusion that Mason Greenwood has done X and Y. When we read the official statement, this is what it says. Manchester United has concluded in its internal investigation into the alleged allegations made against Greenwood. Process commenced in February. All charges had been dropped. We've taken into account the wishes, rights and perspective of the victim along with the club's standards, values and sought to collate information and context. This has required us to proceed with sensitivity and care to obtain evidence not in the public domain, which is what I was saying. Whether we think we know what happened or what we think went on, we don't know, do we? So they've gone and got all the facts. Based on all of the evidence, we've concluded that it did not provide a full picture and that Mason Greenwood did not commit the offences. Right? So what I'm not understanding here is if Mason Greenwood has not committed the offences and the charges were dropped, why is he not allowed to play football for Manchester United again? And you're probably going to say, well, because he might have done it because we heard X and Y. But what we've just been told is from all of the information that's not in the public domain, he didn't do any of that. It was part of which I'll get into, a much longer recording which they eventually played, which gave context. And you might say, oh, that's bullshit, but that's what the club is telling us, the people that have actually listened to the evidence. So it says, yeah, based on, we've concluded that he did not provide a full picture and he didn't commit the offence. That said, Mason publicly acknowledges today he made mistakes. All those involved, including Mason, recognise the difficulties with him recommencing his career at Man United. Basically, the public will not allow this to happen, right? Because they're going to boo him, the rival fans are going to boo him, they're going to come up with chants. It's going to be horrendous for the guy, right? And the woman, right? It has therefore been mutually agreed that it would be most appropriate for him to do it away from Old Trafford. So that's what they're saying. Then Richard Arnold goes on to explain some stuff, and he says, "Dear fans, we have now concluded and announced the outcome of the club's investigation into Mason Greenwood. I want to be direct and transparent." So this is like the most clear information you're going to get. This was an internal disciplinary investigation between employee and employer, which would ordinarily take place outside the public eye. Given the public nature and Mason's profile, I acknowledge this was not an ordinary situation. When audio footage and imagery was posted online in January 22, my feelings were shock and concern for the alleged victim, rightly so. Her welfare, wishes and perspective have been central to the club's approach ever since. Well done. As have the club's standards and values. While we immediately concluded that Mason should be suspended, which is correct, unlike Arsenal, which didn't do that with Partey, we were also conscious of our duty of care towards him because obviously we don't know the full information and that could be quite damaging if it turned out to be not true, which according to their investigation, they said he didn't commit any of the offences. Our investigation sought to collate as much evidence as possible and facts and context. This was not a quick or straightforward process. It was essential for us to respect the rights and wishes of the alleged victim. Also, we have limited powers of investigation, so we have to rely on third-party cooperation, which is what I was saying the other day, that they're going to have to talk to friends, family, and corroborate everything, right? Timings have also been influenced by my desire to minimise the impact on our men's and women's team, as well as our Lionesses, which, I'll be honest, is complete bollocks, because they were going to bring him back regardless of that, which we'll get into. I acknowledge that this gave more time for speculation, but the alternative would have been a compromise. So yeah, which I fully agree. Basically, he said, we'll allow some speculation to run in order to get the full facts, because that's the most important thing. While we're unable to access certain evidence for reasons, we respect the evidence we did collate led us to conclude he did not commit the acts charged with. So what's really confusing is if I defend Mason Greenwood because he wasn't doing any of the things he was charged with, you'd be seen as encouraging domestic violence and been okay with it. Obviously not okay with any of that. That's not what we're saying. What's very weird here is the precedent has been set that if you charge a famous footballer and they investigate it properly and that footballer didn't commit the acts that he was charged with, they are still forced out of the club, which is why I said if some girl just went and accused Haaland of doing something and then they did a year investigation and it turned out he didn't, Haaland would have to leave Man City. I am restricted as to what I can say for legal reasons, including the alleged victim's ongoing right to anonymity, but I am able to share you the following, which should give you some insight. The alleged victim requested the police drop their investigation in 2022. We were provided with alternate explanations for the audio recording, which was a short excerpt from a much longer recording. The alleged victim's family participated in the process and were given the opportunity to review the findings, so everyone's been involved in it. Last week, the media reported that we had decided to reintegrate Mason and elements had been planned to do so. Reintegration was one of the outcomes we considered and planned for. For context, over the last 6 months, outcomes have been contemplated for. So basically what he's saying is, obviously, the fact findings going on, and obviously they have to have a plan that if it turns out he's completely innocent, they bring him back, and if it turns out he's done it, then they have a plan. And obviously that goes on at the same time, because otherwise, once the decision had been decided, you can't then start the plan, right? This is basically what happened if you don't know. This plan got leaked that he was going to be reintegrated because, as we've just heard, he didn't commit any of the offences. And all these celebrities like Rachel Riley and everybody came out and said, I'll never support the club again because of this, which makes no sense because apparently he's not done it. I'm going off what the club's saying. He's saying he's not done it. So he says, this is our CEO. I'm satisfied Mason Greenwood did not commit the acts he was charged with. So this is what is really strange. They are saying he hasn't done anything wrong, but the public don't like it, and therefore he has to go, which in one stance makes sense, because if everybody that supports Man United doesn't want a certain player there, he probably would end up going as well. But the point is, I thought we were judging this based off facts, because otherwise he's been basically publicly judged on things that they have no context and no full facts around. So effectively, Mason Greenwood no longer has a football career, probably in the Premier League or ever as a top footballer, because the public didn't like the decision Manchester United were making, even though they had no ability to judge the decision Manchester United were making, because they didn't have all the facts. And if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm just reading what Richard Arnold has said. So Mason's accepted that he's made mistakes, and he's also mindful of the challenge Mason would face rebuilding his career and raising a baby with his partner. He's also having a kid with her. So it's really strange, basically. If we're being honest, he's now got no football career, despite the CEO saying he's not done anything. And the reason I find this really weird is what he's basically saying is he hasn't done any of those things. He might have done some other stuff, or we don't know, that's not legally bad, but maybe morally or ethically bad. We had Ryan Giggs do all of that things with his brother's wife and then end up managing the club. He was a scummy person. He shouldn't have ended up managing the club. We have Ronaldo, he's potentially the R word, and he played for us, right? I really don't understand this, and it's not necessarily because he's been kicked out, because I can understand why he's been kicked out, but what bugs me is the precedent that's been set. That's the thing that irks me, because I'm not and maybe you can help me. I'm not understanding the precedent here, because to me, what I'm reading is this person didn't do anything, but the public have made it really, really difficult to make him play for us again, so we're going to have to get rid. So that kind of says, if you kick up enough of an outcry, the facts don't matter. So I'm very, maybe concerned is the wrong word, I'm very confused. I really don't get it. I get, on one hand, yes, it's very difficult for him to come back, and maybe the dressing room don't want him or something, you know. But it's just really strange, isn't it? Because I'm reading he hasn't done anything, and I'm reading basically the public are upset and he has to go. But that kind of, in a way, tells me that he has done something, because if he really hadn't done anything, would you not keep him? I think they've realized he'd done nothing and they were going to keep him, and they leaked it to the press, some people that didn't like this news, and he's been binned off to save face. Which, yes, I get, nobody is above Manchester United and the values of Manchester United. But it's so weird, because I'm reading he's not done anything. So it would just be the equivalent if tomorrow somebody said Marcus Rashford has gone and done a load of assaults on a woman, she drops the charges, and then we hear, oh, we've done an investigation, we're going to bring Marcus Rashford back, and then we all kicked up a fuss, and then he had to leave the club forever. I don't get it. I think Jordan Peterson, bloody hell, getting me Jordans mixed up. They're always running the mouth. Jordan Simon, or Simon Jordan, whatever he's called, that bloke from Talk Sport, he basically said, it's going to be stormy, but if he's done nothing wrong, you're going to have to bring him back. But they haven't. Now, the only other flip side, I guess, is if they've asked Mason, do you actually want to play and the girl? And they've just said, look, we're not that bothered. Like, it's going to be impossible to play for that club again. And that makes sense if they've all come to that agreement. But by the sounds of it, they were sort of all okay to reintegrate Mason. And because a few celebrities and there was this big public outcry, I don't get it. And they've binned him off. So that's that, I guess. Let me know what you think. Right decision, wrong decision, strange decision.